Okay, welcome this evening. Very excited to have you here. Thank you for those who are showing up. I am Yvette Desai. Just to make sure you are in the right place, I am Yvette Desai, and I am a healthy habits coach, an Ayurvedic coach, and a yoga instructor and author of a book called Relaunch Your Life Force, which is an international best-selling book on Amazon, available there to talk a little bit about stress relief and stubborn weight loss from a holistic perspective. And today's presentation is Aging with Grace and really learning about tools that can help you to move through life's transitions. So as we move through this, what I would like to really use as a theme is this focus of the acronym of GRACE. This acronym of GRACE, where we think about G representing gratitude, R representing resilience, A representing attitude, C being courage, and E education. And these are all essential ingredients of aging, I feel. Gratitude because we've lived, to this point, such an amazing and beautiful life. We've always also had our struggles, but being gracious and grateful for the things that we've had in our life. And part of getting older and aging is focusing on this whole concept of resilience. How can we bounce back to these ideas of the struggles that we go through? How can we persevere and come back with being even stronger, right? And how do we have that attitude, this certain attitude, right? Because if we have this attitude about aging, that it's all downhill, then that's pretty much what it's going to be. So how can we shift this attitude around aging and what that means to us? And then courage, the courage to believe in ourselves that it is possible to have something different than we might already think it is. And how do we create this experience? Well, it's about educating ourselves, right? So what is information that we can bring into our life and apply to our life to make the changes and be who we really want to be? So I had a couple of you that were here initially begin to write down in the chat box what you were interested in getting out of tonight's presentation. So if the few of you who have just joined, if you could please also write in the chat box. This is a workshop, so it's also interactive. Just tell me a little bit about what you'd like to gain out of tonight's conversation. And hopefully I'll be touching on this. So Alma is sharing with us, I'd love to gain collagen in my skin, keep my vitality, and enjoy the process. Okay, we can talk a little bit about that. Anyone else would like to share? I'll just give you a moment here while everyone's congregating. Don't be shy. All right, so while you're writing in there, I'll come back. Okay, interested in dietary changes. Thank you, Karina. Beautiful. Anything else? You can keep thinking while I begin and get a little bit deeper into the conversation. So do you ever feel like anything is kind of like off in your body and you can't really pinpoint what it is? And I'm sure that if you're here today, there is something that's kind of going awry, right? Something that maybe you're in the midst of. I know like at certain points in my life, I was feeling like my body was rebelling against me, right? Doing things that it had never done before, right? Like I'd eat things and certain things were not responding in the same way. Maybe that, was around like when I had more sweets or drinking alcohol or something that I was used to eating, and all of a sudden it didn't agree with me in the same way. Maybe the things that you're doing in your life are no longer working. Maybe, when you used to think about taking or shedding a few pounds, you'd begin the exercise regime, changing the way that you would eat, and the weight would drop. And maybe now that's not happening anymore. Right. And it could even be that maybe you're not sleeping in the way that you want to. Maybe you're not falling asleep in the way that you want to, or maybe you're falling asleep and then waking up in the middle of the night and you can't fall back to sleep. Or maybe it's just that you are experiencing low energy in your body, right? You get this sense of fatigue, or you're waking up as if you're not feeling very rested, right? Or you get this whole energy lull late in the afternoon. Or maybe you're even experiencing aches and pains or having a tough time getting out of bed in the morning because you're like, I got to hold on to the railing to go down the stairs, right? Because I'm feeling all stiff in my joints, right? Because I've experienced all of that. Um, and so, maybe it's not an injury. Maybe it's just something that you feel old age, or what you call it old age, is transpiring in your life. And so, and it might even be that maybe when you get sick, you don't bounce back in the way that you used to bounce back. And it could even be because perimenopause and menopause are symptoms that you experience as you age. It's a natural progression of aging. So maybe you're experiencing symptoms around this, and you're trying to shake them, and the things that you're doing are not really working. Or maybe it's just overall that you feel off and you're just not really quite sure. So what I want to really just have you think about is that, maybe these are invitations or signals that your body is signaling to you, right? So that you can honor those signals or that inner voice, and you can bring yourself back into balance, right? Maybe your usual route or your usual direction is that you go to the doctor because you have some kind of ache or pain or something that's going on, and they give you a pain pill or a prescription and to cure the issue. And you're just kind of fed up with that at this point. So a lot of Western perspective today is focusing on labeling a disease or an issue or a condition, and then really finding a quick fix, right? Maybe a pill just to kind of hush it away and not really looking at what the root cause is. I'm going to bring up a presentation. Just bear with me here. We'll get into this. So bringing up my presentation, just raise your hands if you can all see that. Those of you on screen, beautiful. Thank you for that feedback. So let's see, moving into this. So I've already introduced myself. I think some of you know. So what I want to hear from you is, what are some of the things that you think about when you think of aging, or when you think about moving into the next decade of your life? Doesn't matter where you're starting. You could be in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s. We're always aging in some way, right? You can't always turn back time, but you can influence how you progress into the future. And I want to show you today that you have a little bit more power than you think. So just share with me. I'm going to pull up my chat box here and just see what you're going to share with me, what you think about when you're aging. Like, what are your preconceptions around aging? Maybe even fears around aging. Yeah, okay, yes, I love this. Yep, wrinkles, achy bones, achy joints, yes, memory loss, yes, thank you for the feedback, ladies. Anyone else, feel free to write in there. I know a lot of people think about, I hear people making comments about, oh my God, I feel so tired. I'm getting old, right? Or, I'm just old. I'm forgetting my memory. It's just part of getting old. Yes, depression too. Yeah, people can become despondent when they're getting older too, right? Maybe even getting that weight creep as we get older. Maybe every few years you're gaining that extra 5 pounds, maybe getting out of shape, right? Even losing our eyesight, right? We start to get glasses, right? Maybe bifocals or something, right? Maybe changing our prescription there. I also hear things about losing our balance, right? And our ability to stand tall and strong. Another thing I hear, especially because I teach yoga, is like, I'm inflexible and I'm achy all the time, right? Yeah, okay, so we're hearing more here. I feel wiser and more experienced. Great, I love that attitude. But you also feel slower and forget details. Yes, right, yeah. So these are all things we think about, right? Maybe even I hear, one of you said a little bit about skin wrinkles. What about like hair loss or gray hair, right? One of you brought up a little bit about sagging, wrinkled skin. So, how do we, increase our collagen in our body? And then some of you have talked about aches and pains, right? Maybe even so, I've heard from a lot of people the message around, oh my God, I'm going to have to start taking medication or adding other medications to what I'm already taking, right? These are just some of the things that we might feel. So I want to share with you, just before we get into the meat of the presentation, we're moving in different directions. Some stats around aging, and then also some stats around chronic inflammation, just to give you a perspective of what it is what's going on with aging. So between 2015 and 2015, it's predicted that a proportion of the world's population over 60 years will nearly double from 12% to 22%. So that's pretty significant, right? 22% of the population will be over 60 years old. So that's going to put a lot of pressure on the healthcare system, right? And so this stat here is right now, 2020, the number of people aged 60 years old and older will outnumber children younger than 5, right? That's now. That's happening now. We're in 2022, right? So already this is happening. So, we have to think about, like, as we have this aging population, what will the healthcare system be able to sustain, right? And we also saw during COVID, right, how a lot of the people that were getting sick and being hospitalized was and is the aging population. This continues, right? And so we see this result is that the pace of the aging population is going much faster than in the past, right? And so this leaves a lot to think about, like, how will countries face some of these changes and some of these challenges that we go on, right, in our social systems? And if we don't have health insurance, what do we do, right? And so these are just things that are things to think about, right? It differs from, different communities, right? And so sometimes, life can also bring opportunity, but we just want to look too, like what are factors in this, right? So there's a lot of chronic non-communicative diseases. So when I think of chronic non-communicative diseases, I think about chronic inflammation, things like heart disease, stroke, dementia, Alzheimer's, autoimmune issues, right? And that seems like that is really what is the predominant factor that's happening, right? 54% in low and middle income countries, 44%. If we look at the green, blue, and yellow, we see that the burden on the healthcare system is really in these non-communicable diseases. And the positive thing here is, because I don't want to just be all fear and gloom and doom, is that a lot of this is controllable, right? A lot of it is under the influence of you, and you have the power to change this, right? So when we think about aging, I want you to also think about some of the opportunities that a longer life can actually present, right? There's a lot of chance to pursue new activities that you may not have been able to do while you were working. As you move into retirement, maybe you have more space and time as you become an empty nester, right? If you are at that stage in your life, right? Kids getting older are able to help out in the family in a lot of way, but also too, as you bring a lot of wisdom to the community and to society, and you're able to help out in ways that you may not have been able to before. But all of these opportunities and contributions to society really depend heavily on one factor, and that is the state of your health, right? And so if people can experience these extra years of life, right, if you can move in, because we see that a lot of people are aging in a way that may not be positive and not contribute, so that they can't necessarily contribute to society, we want to, think about this and how it's impacting the healthcare system. Right. But if you can experience this, if you can experience aging with health, then you can have a good life, you can have supportive environment, you can do a lot of things that are valuable to your life and the people around you, your family, right? Similar to a younger person, right? But if we have these added years and they're dominated by decline in your physical and your mental capacity, then this potential is more negative, right? So I want to bring in this study, and I think some of you may have heard some of this study before, and I don't actually have a slide for this, but it's around chronic inflammation, and it was a study that was done by the World Health Organization. And it was conducted in 2020. And what it really shows, and the study was actually focused on the US. And what happened is they began the study in the year 2000. And in that year, they found that over 125 million Americans had one chronic condition, right? And about 61 million had more than one. Right. And then they looked at the US in 2014. And they found that when they looked at the US population at that time, it was 60% of Americans had one chronic condition, right? And 42% had more than one. And 12% of the adults had 5 or more chronic conditions, right? And so the reason why I share this study with you is because the US, and why they use the US as an example, is because the US is a leader and an example for the world and what's going on. And so they began to extend this study to the world, and now they're seeing in 2020 that worldwide 3 out of 5 people are dying due to chronic inflammatory diseases like stroke, like the things that I was talking about, chronic respiratory diseases, heart disorders, cancer, obesity, diabetes, right? And so when we look back at this slide that I presently have here in front of you, that's everything in blue, right? So we think about these diseases like diabetes, right? I think the American Diabetes Association say that like about almost 10% of the American population has diabetes, right? It's the 7th leading cause of disease. Cardiovascular disease, right? We think about, there's almost 800,000 deaths in the US related to this, right? Arthritis and joint disease, 43 million people, right? So, and allergies, right? A lot of allergies are really controllable, right? So I'm just sharing this with you because I think it's important for you to understand that these are chronic illnesses, chronic disease that are all caused by chronic inflammation. And one thing we know about chronic inflammation is that it is controllable, and that there are many lifestyle factors that you can change, dietary changes that you can make to control your chronic inflammation in your body. And so when I used to think about aging, I thought that it was all about aches and pains, not moving in a way that you wanted to, not being able to do the things that you want to do. But I began to change my perspective of aging, and how I was able to change that was because how I got sick and how I changed that and realized, wow, there's so much more in my control. And I'll tell you a little bit about my story a little bit later. But now I think about my life now, and I feel like there's just so much wisdom that I can bring. And I think about going further into my life, and I continue to grow and I evolve and I learn and I explore life, and being part of community and supporting that, right? And just being comfortable in my skin and my body, right? And just having more time to do what I want. And so, like everything, there's always negative and positive mindsets in what we're doing. And so a lot of times in our 20s and even in our 30s, we believe that we're going to live forever, right? Unless someone close to us or even ourselves has suffered from some kind of chronic health issue, right? And a lot of times we continue to eat in the same way, live in the same way, and even the same way that we were raised, right? No, mostly because we feel good enough in our body. And so some of us, we come to this reckoning later in our life. And I know, like, for example, my dad, he was faced with his own mortality in his 70s when my mom got sick, and he realized, but he was probably face to face with that a little bit more because he is a doctor, so he saw death every day, right? But so, even when some of us had made some changes in our life, right, they're not always easy to stick to, right? Consistency can always be an issue, right? Lack of support, lack of accountability. There's always issues that happen in life. Life gets busy, someone gets sick, we've got to help someone, work gets busy, we've got timelines, deadlines, right? I remember with my sister when she was in her 20s and 30s, she dealt with a lot of IBS issues, and that made her realize that she needed to make a lot of lifestyle changes and what she was doing in her life. And it was when I hit my 40s that I had to really face my reality when I was dealing with illness, right? Where I had to choose between treating myself with drugs or surgery or complementary modalities. And so we now know that science shows us that you can influence about 90% of your genes and how they express yourself. So aging doesn't begin when you retire or when you hit a certain age, right? It's just part of a journey of life and how you actually approach it, right? It starts when you're young. We're always aging, and it continues as we get older. But you can control how you feel as you age. So many things are controllable, right? So coming with that comes new wisdom and power. So when we come back to that acronym of GRACE that I used in the beginning, education is so key, right? Your attitude is so key. Being grateful for what you have, right? Yeah. So the idea here is to really begin to focus on the prevention of a lot of these chronic diseases. So this talk is really for you. So I see that we've had a few more people join in here. This talk is really for you if you are someone who's fed up with blaming your issues on age, right? That you want to take control of your life and that you're willing to step up to and take responsibility for your life and make lifestyle changes that will last, right? Right. So often we start on this like kind of roller coaster ride of like we, are following like this tip and that tip and we try and integrate it and then something happens and we kind of fall off the wagon. But if you could have consistency and really creating long-term lifestyle changes, everything changes in your life. If you are ready to put yourself first, right? So often, especially as women, I think we have mainly women on the call tonight, we tend to put many other people beyond and before ourselves, feeling that sense of responsibility for everyone else around us. And we tend to neglect our own self-care and our own needs, filling everybody else's cup rather than our own, right? And also, are you ready to take charge of your health rather than taking messages from everyone else about what you should be doing? Are you willing to stand in your own truth and listen to what your body needs, listen to the signals of what your body is telling you? And maybe you're not aware of that, but are you willing to then develop that awareness and then honor those signals and take action, right? And wanting to be an active participant in being able to prevent any kind of chronic illness and inflammation in your body. So I want you to just ask yourself this question right now. Like, what will happen if you don't take action? Just think about some of the things that you're doing in your life right now, right? Maybe you're having a few too many glasses, a few nights a week. Maybe you're, drinking a lot of caffeine. Maybe you're just rushing, going, never sitting down, never taking a pause, not creating balance. Maybe not eating in the right way, or even if you are eating in the right way, maybe you're not spacing out your meals and you're grazing throughout the whole day, right? So if you don't take action, right, you could even write that in the chat box if you'd like. What would happen if you don't take action? Maybe you want to share that with me. So what I hear a lot of people saying around me is that if I don't take action, right, then what will happen is I end up feeling more tired, more fatigued, maybe not being able to do the things that you want to do, right? It could just get worse. Thank you, Alma. Yes, it could just get worse, right? Right? You may not be able to spend time with loved ones, right? You may not be able to travel, right? If you think about like what you want in like 6 months or 12 months or maybe a couple years from now, or when you think about time moving on, what are the things that you want to be doing and will you be able to do those? Maybe even playing sports or exercise in the way that you want to. Or maybe some of you that might be looking forward to having grandchildren, will you be able to take care of them or even interact with them in the way that you want to, right? Or just having time for you to focus and learn new things, right? It could be very simple. So if you are here and, maybe you wouldn't be looking for answers if what you were doing wasn't necessarily working right now. So what's really happening, right? If you're taking all these actions that are not helping you, then you're actually robbing time today from tomorrow, right? Maybe going to bed too late, waking up in the middle of the night, right? And so you might be living in this sense of fear of what if, because you're living in this response mode, right? Because there is no structure to what you're doing and your lifestyle and the rituals that you have in your life. And maybe you don't have habits that are actually very easy habits, right? That could support this desire to age in the way that you want to, right? So, maybe it is that you're taking painkillers or sleeping at night, taking like sleep killer or not sleep kill sleep pills, right, to fall asleep at night, right, which we know are not necessarily very good for you. Maybe you're dealing with stress and anxiety or even boredom by overeating, right, filling that a void that you might have by constantly snacking, right? And so this isn't really going to get you to be, right? Kathleen is, or Katie's saying, yes, I will stay in a stagnant space and feel depressed. Yes. So that happens a lot, right? So what doesn't work, we know, is reacting and not planning, right? Not having structure, Right? One of my core beliefs is that structure creates evolution. And I'm not saying like a rigid structure, but you need to have some kind of daily rituals to support your evolution. So I want to just tell you a little bit about my story, right? So I never really dreamed about being a health coach, I have to say. I am here just by chance, I suppose. I don't know. I became ill when I was in my mid 40s and was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, a thyroid condition, and osteoarthritis in my neck. And at that point, I was told that I would either need to take medication for a significant part of my life or have an operation. And at that time, my kids were younger and I didn't have a lot of family around to help. And I was like, I can't do that. And I was fortunate enough to have people around me that were involved with complementary modalities. And so I chose to go that route. Right. But even before that, I had a lot of issues going around on. I had body image issues, suffering from eating disorders, which I'm sure contributed to the conditions of that day. I used a lot of food and alcohol to numb so that I didn't have to feel and be present and listen to my body wisdom. I also had a lot of anxiety and suffered from depression in my 20s. Right. And so as I got older and I got married and as a mom, I kind of fell into that flow of what I thought society expected of me, right? Working all the time, volunteering all the time, running, my kids around to all the directions that they wanted to go and getting up for 5 a.m. boot camps and spreading myself thin. And so I really wasn't taking care of myself, but just doing, being responsible for everyone else and trying to look for approval from others and not getting self-care, right? And then that's what really contributed to what I got when I got sick. And so I've learned through this healing journey that I've experienced, right? It's changed in different phases of my life that the most important thing is to listen to my inner voice, my intuition, and know what's best for me, not anyone else, right? And so allopathic medicine and Western medicine is important, right? It has its place in time, but they're always very quick to label a disease and prescribe a treatment, right? And I like to think about how we can get to the root cause. What is actually causing these issues in my body? And when I came down to it and thought about it and explored and researched and understood more about this, it was all about inflammation, right? And in Ayurveda, that I'll talk a little bit about more shortly, and some of you who've done cleanses or worked with me, you understand this concept of ama, right? Ama is inflammation, that which cannot be digested, right? Agni, our digestive fire, that is aloof. It's not consistent, right? So my healing journey, this is one of the reasons that led me to be where I am today, is because I found that I could use lifestyle changes. I could use food. I could use spices and herbs to heal my body and change the way that I was moving. So as I came into my 50s, my body changed again, right? So even though I was healthier and had predominantly healed in some ways, a lot of things began to go out of whack, right? So maybe my sleep was a little off, my energy was off, and I was moving into this state of perimenopause, menopause, right? And so as I became more of a yoga practitioner, I began to learn more about Ayurveda and these 10 habits. And so I began to integrate this whole rhythm, the cycle of Ayurveda into my life, right? And I'm sure that each of you have been through a time, maybe, or you know someone where you desire deep change or growth, right? Maybe you started out okay, you kind of wavered on that journey, right? But then you maybe wavered off. But what I found is that having a community really helped me and supported propel my change and my growth in a very different way, right? I reached out to health coaches and work with them one-on-one, but the real change came when I leaned into community, right? And so that's why I do what I do, um, because I find that the power of change can come from being in a group, right? And creating structure and having support, right? And so one of the reasons I've designed these programs for you is for really focusing on women who really spread themselves thin and want to age in a better way so that you can learn to really nourish yourself first, love yourself, fill your cup so you can be your best you, right? So I know without structure, there is no evolution. So what I'm about to share with you a little bit here is, just before we get into that, it's just, what would life be like if you looked like 6 months or 12 months from now? What would it be like if you had an abundance of energy and you were bouncing out of bed and you didn't have all those aches and pains in your joint? You know, what would you be doing that you are not doing now? And how would you be interacting with people? How would you feel in your body? Right? And just thinking about like the challenges that you face when your energy's low, right? You don't want to get up and do the things that you might do normally, right? Maybe you don't want to go out for that walk and you just sit on the sofa when you come home from work and watch TV all night, right? Maybe you're not integrating or at the community in the way that you'd like to. Right, so just think a little bit about that. You can share it in the chat box if you'd like, or just write it down just so that you have this reflection. I'm going to share with you a little bit about Ayurveda. Oh, and before that, it's just about responsibility. And this is what I talked to just before I forgot about this, is just a little bit about responsibility, right? So, you know, one of the books that I lean heavily into are these 15 commitments. And one of the things they talk about is living above the line, right? And when we live above the line, we're taking radical responsibility for our own life, right? Not being a victim, right? Not blaming others for our health issues, the health system or the food that's available, or, you know, someone else is causing our issues. But when you stand above the line and you take full responsibility for your issues, right, and your own well-being, that's when you can take full responsibility for your life and step into your full power. So I'm going to just share with you a little bit about Ayurveda and what that is, because that's really key to aging. And so I find that the key to aging is, and aging gracefully, more importantly, is to practice these daily rituals, these daily habits that help us build something called ojas, right? And ojas in Ayurveda is the sap of essential life, right? Life energy, right? And when we have this, what we call ojas, this deep nourishment and bliss in our body that requires balance and harmony in all of our doshas. So in Ayurveda, Ayurveda believes that we are made up of the elements of nature, that being fire and water, earth, air, and ether. Right? And all of these elements exist in nature, and so we are part of nature, and so they reside within us, within these different energies. And so Ayurveda is an Eastern modality of science, sister science to yoga, that's been around 5,000 years, originating in India, right? And it's a preventative healing modality, right? And yogis believe that we're all connected, whether or not we're dead or alive, right? It's all our mind, body, and spirits. And when we're all in harmony with each other and in balance, then we have this sense of ojas, right? This strong digestive fire called Agni. And then we have a calm and settled mind. And these are all key so that we can really cultivate our ojas and then influence how we age and feel better in our mind, right? And so this whole belief is that health and wellness really depends on this delicate balance of the mind, body, and spirit. And the essence behind it is to promote good health and not fight disease, but rather prevent disease. Right. So AMA, again, I just want to bring that idea to you, is this idea of chronic inflammation, undigested food, and experiences. So you see that I have what we call an Ayurveda clock. It's also known as the circadian rhythm. So I alluded to these different energies or these elements that we have, and they contribute to energies that exist within our body, within nature, within the day, right? Within the cycles of life, within the seasons, right? And it's all in sync as the moon cycles and the sun cycles. And if we're living against that rhythm, if we're going to bed after 10 p.m., right? Or when it's, you know, when that energy is rising up, then we're robbing time away from today, from tomorrow, right? We're robbing time. Right. And so we have these habits, and I'm just talk about them shortly. And so what I wanted to show you here is that, you know, there's these energies that exist within the day and the night. And so if we are living in sync with these energies, then we're in balance, and we're more likely to decrease the inflammation in our body and increase our digestive fire. At the heart of Ayurveda is healing our digestion, right? Which if we can heal our digestion, then we can prevent so much chronic inflammation in our body. Right, so that's really key for you to understand here. So what are these rituals? Some of you might be thinking about. I'm just checking on the time right now. Okay, so these rituals, right? So the first one is an early light dinner. So the question to ask yourself is, a lot of traditional time, like in Western society, we have this heavy meal towards the end of the day. And if we go back to that slide here and we look at this kapha time right here. So this would be, my thing is not working here. The arrow is going down. So say this is like 6 o'clock here, sunrise, sunset here. So early light dinner is considered around 6 p.m. Right, you see the arrow is going down, the energy is going down. When we think of kapha energy, it's dense, it's stable, it's strong, but the energy is going down, which means that our digestive fire is not really high, which means then that we're not really able to digest a lot of a heavy meal at this time of the night. So if you're going and eating a heavy meal in the middle of the night, or in the evening rather, and then you're going to bed on a full stomach, then you're not really able to take full advantage of the energy that is existing between 10 p.m. and 2 p.m. And what is this energy? This energy you'll see is the energy going up, the rising arrow. And what do you see here is this idea of bile, right? Fire and water create bile. That is the ability of our body to digest food. So in the middle of the day, that's probably when we should have our biggest meal. But in the middle of the night, that's the energy that our body uses to detoxify and rejuvenate our cells. So if our body has to focus on eating this heavy dinner, then it's not able to really detoxify our cells and regenerate cells and get rid of the inflammation, right? So really important to focus on this early light dinner, right? And avoiding those afternoon, having a larger meal in the middle of the day. And that helps us to avoid these crashes in the middle of the afternoon. I'm sure, some of you, I know, speaking to a couple of you, you have these energy lulls in the middle of the afternoon, and a lot of cravings might transpire, cravings for coffee or sugar, for example. And so if you have a larger meal in the middle of the day, then you won't have those energy lulls in the middle of the night, in the later part of the afternoon. So if we're having, we'll move on to the next habit, early to bed, right? So going to bed, we want to kind of take that evening. Notice how you're feeling when you come home in the evening. Do you feel really tired? Are you leaning into that energy and allowing yourself to just do lighter activities or projects in the evening, right? So if you are able to go to bed before 10, then you're capitalizing on that downward energy, on that arrow that you saw before, right? And that allows you to sleep better, sleep deeper. And I recommend that you even just try that. Going to bed after 10, you have a lighter sleep. If you go to bed right before 10, you have a much deeper sleep. And just experiment. That's what Ayurveda is about, experimenting, exploring, and knowing your body, right? And then we have this other habit called start the day right. Starting the day right, right? So if we go back to that circadian rhythm at 6 a.m., try and get up during the time of Vata between 4 and 6 a.m. We take advantage of the rising sun and the rising energy. And this is when our capacity to imprint our day is strong, right? And how do we start the day right? By taking some lemon water, right? And drinking enough so that allows us to do a big poop in the morning. I hope all of you are pooping every single morning, first thing in the morning, because that's relieving all the waste from the day before. Not only the digestive matter in terms of food, but also the emotional waste of the day before. Just notice, I'm sure you've all felt this way when you're feeling like constipated or bloated in your body, your energy is just not the same. But if you release all of that energy in your body, then you make space for new energy in your day, just starting the day right. So yogis have been doing these habits for years, right? Because they wanted to experience spiritual enlightenment. But when you experience this type of feeling, right, this sense of the morning, which is also known as Brahma Muhurta, this is a quiet, sacred time before the daily hustle of the life of your day, right? And allows you to imprint on your body, what I want, the sense of ease to start your day, right? And you can raise that energy right in the middle of the morning instead of having your morning coffee by starting with a body breath practice, right? Right before breakfast, going out for a brisk walk, taking maybe if you have a dog or just walking around the block. If you're not able to do that, you could do sun salutations, right? So I'm just going to go through a few more of these habits because some of you might be familiar with them, like a plant-based diet, right? This is important, not being that you have to be a vegan, right? But we all know that plants are much easier for our body to digest. And as you're aging, really important for you to have a plant-based diet. It's easier to digest or having lighter proteins, making sure that you have really good fats in your diet, right? And I'm not saying that you can't have things like bone broths because those are really essential for you as you age, especially if you're trying to build the collagen in your body. I know that someone had mentioned that. So really important to have bone broths to really keep the collagen going. But I want to say one thing about this is that you can be eating the best diet in the world, right? But if your digestion and your fire and your ability to digest your food and absorb your nutrients is off, so if you're feeling bloated, if you're not pooping every day, if you've got scalped edges on your tongue, these are all signs. Remember I talked about in the beginning, these signs that indicate to your body that your digestion is out of whack, that you're out of whack in some way. If you're not honoring these signals, then you could be eating the best food, but not absorbing these nutrients. Really key. The other key to really aging well is having a calm and balanced nervous system, right? Because we know that inflammation is caused by anxiety and stress in our body. So if we can really calm down in our body, we can use self-massage, just rubbing at our joints and our body. This was something that was really key to me during COVID, especially because I was feeling quite anxious. I'm sure many of you have, but really just allowing yourself a little self-massage and soothing in your nervous system helps you sleep deeper and be more grounded in your body. Right? This idea of sitting in silence. Now, a lot of you sometimes say, well, I'm not ready for that. I can't sit in silence. I can't meditate. You equivalent this to meditation, but you can breathe, right? We practice a lot of different pranayama and breathing practices, things like humming, 4-square breath, allowing yourself to feel into your body, feel more grounded, allow yourself to stimulate and activate the vagus nerve in turn, then stimulating the parasympathetic system, right, which allows us to be in that rest and relax mode, which allows us to sleep better, to be more present, to reduce the inflammation in our body, right, to digest our food better. So this idea of healthy eating or guidelines, right, is this idea of rhythmic eating, right, and goes a lot deeper than that, but just something to think about. And then coming into this idea of senses, as we get older, one of the things that we've talked about is losing our sight, maybe losing our hearing, our ability to smell in the same way, to taste in the same way, right? This is all preventable, right? Helping our eyes, right? I wear these glasses not because I can't see, but because I'm protecting my eyes from the blue light from the screen that I spend time in front of. So that's important, right? And there's ways that you can protect the gateway to your senses, right? Taking a break from your computer, resting your eyes on the horizon, applying oils to your eyes, to your eyebrows, to your ears, right? To your nostrils, scraping your tongue, taking care of your senses. And when you do these things regularly, these practices open up your lenses of perception. Right. And it also aids in the longevity of your sense organs, right? And so this whole idea of easeful living, right? It's an attitude. One of the things I started off with again is that whole theme of grace, attitude, right? Right. So how do you manage your stress? How do you avoid overscheduling and overdoing? What kind of boundaries do you have in your life? Right? Because this all contributes to a more easeful living life. And when we have more ease in our life, we have less stress in our life. And then again, we're reducing chronic inflammation. And then when we're reducing chronic inflammation, we're reducing that blue section in those circles that I showed you in the stats before, right? Right. Not forgetting to breathe, right? So important. Maybe using essential oils daily in your life, right? Caring for the sense organs again, eating immune building foods, right? Veggies and lots of colored fruits and, things that the broth, lots of ghee, right? Manuka honey, All these things can be used to prevent and fight infections and help your body. Right? Steering clear of those foods that are heavy in our body, that are not easily digested, processed foods, right? And then spicing your food. Spicing your food is so important, right? Around using things like ginger and turmeric and cayenne and black pepper, right? So this is just a few things that you can be doing, right? And obviously I can't teach all of this to you in the short time that we have together, because it includes lifestyle change and it's individualized to each of your own bodies, um, right? So for those of you who are serious about wanting to really take your health back and learn how to evolve into the next phase of your life, and want to be clear in your mind, right? Clear in your focus, have the energy, build the collagen in your body, move and get rid of aches and pains, I'm offering you an invitation to join my new summer program. Right? It's called Nourishing the Busy Woman, Secrets to Putting You First and Loving You More. Right? And this is an opportunity for any of you that might be feeling tired and exhausted, maybe stressed or anxious. Maybe you're feeling emotional or struggling to maintain a healthy weight, right? Maybe you're just having a tough time fitting it all in, or maybe you're not aging in the way that you want to, right? This is a private and supportive group. There are limited spaces in this environment to help you achieve those goals. And you can make this choice to put yourself first, love you more, remembering you're always an example to the people around you, your children, your partner, your friends, your family, right? And so what you'll learn from this program, right, is learning how to identify triggers that might put you in a state of self-sabotage and put you into that escape and numb mode. You'll learn to release that sense of shame and self-sabotage around that. You'll learn how to create new habits in your life, right, using behavioral science. You'll also learn about easy tips to help and with meal planning and cooking and prepping. You'll also develop a better relationship with food and how it can nourish you, right? It's not all about food. It's also about how you can find more compassion and self-acceptance for yourself, right? Because so often when we start on a program or a new way of life, we're going to go for that A+. And how can we step back and just be more compassionate and empathetic with ourselves, so that you can release those perfectionist tendencies? And this is a big thing that I focus on, right? Learning how to, use tools to nourish your spirits and find that centering and balance that you need, energy tools to connect with you, and also improve your self-confidence and image as you age, right? Stop that weight creep. So what this includes is 6 live coaching calls over a 3-week period. You'll have a Facebook support group. You'll also get a 30-minute one-on-one with me. There's also guides around recipe guides for whole foods and vegan eating. Not a lot around Ayurveda in terms of eating Ayurvedically, but we will be talking about Ayurvedic concepts. I will also be doing a body goal assessment with each of you, and that is really understanding the ways your body is inflamed and what it's costing you. So we'll do an analysis of that together, and then habit evolution. So understanding how to create new habits and focusing on different habits like learning a routine around going early to bed, rhythmic eating, starting the day right so that you feel better and can begin to bring these into your life. And so this is an investment of $897, but if you sign up by June 29th, right, you can save $200. And there's 3 bonuses until the 29th, which is you'll get an extra 45 minutes with me where you will identify specifically your triggers and your ways of self-sabotaging, and I will work with you on new strategies to move you forward. And then also there is a 21-day Love You More Reflections ebook. And so some of you may not even know what you want, right, in the next month, the next 6 months, next year. You don't know what your next what is. And maybe it's because we're busy and we've, drowned ourselves in the superfluous sense of what others want. And what is it you deeply want? So taking 3 minutes, 5 minutes to just ponder different questions around your life to help you dig deeper, right? And unravel what it is you truly desire in your life for the next phase. And then 5 clean eating hacks, because, we know that when we get busy, it's always easy to, dive into the cupboard or the freezer or, call for takeout. Life makes it so much easier to do that, right? But how can we make it easier so that we're eating cleaner and more healthy and more nourishing to our body? Right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here now and just take any questions that you might have around this presentation. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, but would love to hear any questions and just take those on if you have them. And if you feel shy about unmuting yourself, you can also just ask them in the chat box here. Okay, giving you one more minute for that. No one has any questions? That's fine. So if you are interested in the program, I will be sending it out in an email tomorrow. If you have any questions, please reach out. You can always DM me. I'm looking forward to hosting you and supporting you on your journey so that you can age with grace. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.